Hi, my name is Adam Max, and welcome to Nostalgia Obscura. I am someone who believes in the infinite possibilities afforded to art and entertainment by the medium of animation. At its very best, it has the ability to craft incredible, visually compelling worlds and bring them to life. My personal favorite kind of animation is surreal CGI, an experimental form which is unfortunately mostly confined to the works of the early 90s, when CGI was still developing and the tech supporting it hadn't yet been perfected. With computer animation becoming more and more advanced as the years go by, it has become incredibly rare for me to see a surreal animation made with intentionality. But every once in a while, I manage to discover a gem that I had missed. A few years ago, when taking a beginning animation class, I was shown a fascinating animated short film unlike anything I had ever seen before. It mostly depicted two people talking back and forth to each other, but the visuals showed a world that was warped and characters that were deformed and twisted, with their mental states and internal traumas affecting their appearances. This film was called Ryan. Ryan is a surrealist CGI animated documentary in which the creator, Chris Landreth, interviews renowned animator Ryan Larkin about his life and career. The audio is composed of real interviews that Chris held with Ryan, which Chris then creatively animated around. Ryan talks about his past successes as an animator and how his life took a downturn, with him ending up begging on the street. Ryan speaking about his failures allows Chris to reflect on his own insecurities as well. Before I get into the film itself, I want to talk a bit more about Chris Landreth and Ryan Larkin. Ryan Larkin was an animator known most prominently for his psychedelic, hand-drawn short films of the 60s and 70s, produced while working at the National Film Board of Canada, or NFB. His most well-known works were the 1968 short Walking, which was nominated for an Academy Award, and 1972's Street Music, which won Grand Prize at the Melbourne International Film Festival of the next year. To say he was a little unconventional as an artist would be an understatement. In 1975, the NFB commissioned him to create a mural for the entrance foyer of their Montreal headquarters. The last thing they probably expected to receive was a painting of a teenage boy with an erection who may or may not have been jerking it. Needless to say, it was removed from viewing shortly after its revelation. Ryan eventually left the NFB in 1978 and disappeared from the world of animation for years. Chris Landreth, on the other hand, is a CG animator who got his start in 1991, producing a short called The Listener for MTV's experimental animation show Liquid Television.
Are you comfortable?
No, it doesn't get any better than this.
Comfortable? Are you...
He later joined the company Alias, which is now owned by Autodesk, and was integral to developing the first iteration of the 3D modeling software Maya. During this time, he directed two short films. 1995's The End, nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah, I'm doing this cool animation with lots of profound symbolism and political allegory. It's called The End.
And 1998's Bingo, which won a Genie Award. Both of these films are visually really cool, but I wouldn't recommend watching Bingo if you have a fear of clowns.
You're Bingo! Bingo! Bingo the clown! No!
Jesus Christ. Chris met Ryan by chance in 2000 during the Ottawa International Animation Festival, where he saw 3 of Ryan's films and was said to have been immediately inspired to make a film about the older animator. The result was 2004's Ryan, Chris Landreth's most well-known work to date and the pioneer of his signature animation style of psychorealism, where characters' psychological traumas manifest in their appearances, with twisted and lacerated bodies and faces. Development of these characters was stated to have been partially inspired by plastinated human bodies on display at the Body Worlds exhibition. When the film opens, you'd be forgiven for initially thinking that it looks fairly typical. For the first few seconds, it's just Chris's animated representation in a bathroom, talking directly to the camera.
Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm here to explain some things.
But then he looks in the mirror and starts talking about the bizarre deformities on his face that have become visible.
This is from September 1982, when I underwent a catastrophic loss of my ability to organize my finances in any meaningful way.
He talks a little bit about himself, focusing on his dread of personal failure, before stating that this story isn't about him, it's about Ryan.
But I'm getting off the subject here, I'm afraid. This story is about Ryan.
Their perspective is then permanently given to his mirror form, who exits the bathroom. The title card appears on screen, and it was from this moment that I was hooked. The majority of the film takes place in this cafeteria, which is filled with strange-looking, broken people. They are equal parts grotesque and sad. A man with stilts for arms and legs, a conehead beggar with no eyes, a half-deflated man who can do nothing but slump and smoke. Their appearances all give a great weight to them, even though we never learn the stories of these characters. Ryan himself is a skeleton of a man, held together by metallic rods, with twisted arms and holes in places where flesh should be. The first half of the film focuses primarily on Chris talking with Ryan about his career as an animator, showing clips of both walking and street music, with a younger Ryan animated over the latter. There are a couple of brief interview segments with other people as well, namely Ryan's ex-girlfriend Felicity Fanjoy and his former producer Derek Lamb, who are both depicted as 3D renderings of Ryan's sketches of them. The second half is about Ryan's current struggles with substance abuse and homelessness, and is the highest point of the film's animation. During a discussion in which Chris attempts to talk Ryan into quitting alcohol, Ryan gets so angry that he literally flies apart, with spikes shooting out of his body.
If somebody gives me some fucking money, one cannot do anything at all, without the power of money.
After this scene, Chris briefly talks about his mother, using Ryan's addiction as a way to reflect on hers as well.
Things as they are after she died of it.
Every artist's worst fear.
I know. Paralyzing. I see the way that she went downhill, and I see the way that you've come to this point.
Personal failure.
The film's last scene is of Ryan panhandling on the street, begging for spare change from the deformed passersby. Chris waves to him from across the street, his body now resembling Ryan's, maybe to indicate his more complete identification with the animator. It ends on Ryan begging with nobody on the street, while his reflection shows his younger self, both moving very particularly in a callback to an earlier part of the film.
You have a spare change, sir? Spare change, sir? Thank you, sir. Oh, you're very kind.
If I were to describe Ryan in one word, it would be human, because everything about it is a reflection of human emotion, even if what is being depicted physically doesn't happen in real life. Even smaller details, like the pair of hands that extend from Ryan's canteen, that beg him to drink it and flip off Chris when he suggests beating alcohol, give this film so much heart and life. And Chris in this film sees Ryan's loss of creativity as a way to reflect on his own fear of failure, both of which are relatable sentiments to artists of any kind. My summary of events has been pretty thin, and that's because I want you to go watch Ryan yourselves. It's nothing short of phenomenal, and visually it holds up even today. Ryan ended up becoming a massive success, with it being shown at several film festivals and winning over 60 different awards, including an Academy Award for Best Short Film.
I am here tonight because of the grace and humility of one guy watching from Montreal. Ryan Larkin, I dedicate this award to you.
A documentary about the making of Ryan called Alter Egos was also released under the NFB, giving additional focus to Ryan's past, Chris's creative process, and the working relationship between the two of them.
Well, it's got a slightly biblical look that you have, that you enjoy.
Uh-oh, drawing the worry lines in there. Now I'm really going to look like I'm in my 40s.
40s are the best years.
The popularity of Ryan gave an unprecedented amount of fame to a previously unknown Ryan Larkin, with millions of people suddenly desiring to see him produce more work. The result of this desire manifested in Larkin's last film, Spare Change, about his panhandling on the streets of Montreal, based on poems he had written.
You know.
Say, ask him, can you lend me $5?
No way. Got
on,
no
man,
money.
just $5, that's
and
all I
listen,
need.
I'm a bum, you're a bum, and I don't think it's ethical for a bum to bum from a bum. What you are doing is called a mugging.
He created it in collaboration with composer Laurie Gordon of the band Chihuahua, who was responsible for the music and voices in the film. Even when he began working on Spare Change, Larkin continued panhandling, stating, "I can't disappoint my clientele." During this period, Larkin also said he had given up some bad habits, including drinking, to focus on his animating career. Sadly, Larkin died in 2007 from lung cancer that had spread to his brain before the completion of Spare Change. He was 63 years old. This left Laurie Gordon to complete the film alone, and it was released in 2008, becoming the final piece of Ryan Larkin's complicated legacy. As for Chris Landreth, the success of Ryan earned him offers to produce feature films, but he turned them down, preferring to focus on animated short films. Continuing to work with the NFB, which co-produced Ryan, he has released 2 award-winning films since: The Spine in 2009,
You hear the window fan, the cat's paw prints, and for the first time in 15 years, you see music in your head.
and Subconscious Password in 2013.
I'd like you to see it at home. The password is John. Dick, for 10 points, first clue. Travolta.
Travolta.
Oh, gotta be faster there, Charles.
I was just gonna.
Don't argue.
He also created a short vignette called Be Cool in 2016 for the NFB's satirical PSA series Naked Island.
Be cool, don't be an asshole.
Landreth is currently an artist in residence at the Dynamic Graphics Project of University of Toronto, where he is working on a feature-length adaptation of a graphic novel biography of H.P. Lovecraft. I'm really glad that I had been shown Ryan, because now it's cemented itself as being one of my favorite works of animation ever. It also exposed me to the other films and creative geniuses of Ryan Larkin and Chris Landreth, 2 animators that represent radically different periods of animation history, but are connected by their internal struggles and their spectacular contributions to the medium. I will look to Larkin to recall animation's past, and to Landreth to hope for its future. And I will continue watching Ryan from time to time, to always remember the value of not only the art form, but the artists themselves.